You have to try this braised beef sandwich. It is delicious. I had this big piece of meat that I needed to use up that was sitting in my freezer. This was beef short ribs wrapped around a large chunk of beef roast. And I really wanted to use it up because we were going to be receiving another cow in the next couple of days. And I thought, what better way to use this meat than to make a braised beef sandwich? So I just took it out of the packaging. I made sure to dry it with some paper towel because I don't want there to be a lot of moisture on it. And I'm just going to season it with some coarse salt. I don't do anything else to it. I just make sure the salt actually gets rubbed into the meat on all sides. Here I'm preheating my Dutch oven. You should use a Dutch oven to make braised meats so that you don't burn the bottom of the pan. I heat it up to medium high or even a tad above medium high, and then I put some lard in. I want to make sure to coat the bottom of the pan so that, again, my meat doesn't burn. You want to hear it sizzle, and once one side has cooked nicely and is caramelized, it's ready to flip. It only takes a couple of minutes. So it should look just as you see here once I flip it. It's nicely browned and caramelized, and that's where a lot of the good flavor comes from. And it's the first stepping stone to building this really yummy sauce for this braised beef. While I'm searing all the sides, I am going to go ahead and cut the onions. I like to have a substantial amount of onions in my braised beef dish, and I will use these onions. They'll become nice and caramelized. I'll use them in the sandwich afterwards. The worst thing is to start chopping things with a knife that is not sharpened. I often sharpen my knives, but I don't know, I find they dull too quickly. Maybe I just need some better quality knives. Or maybe I need a better sharpener, who knows. So I'll quickly slice up these onions. I'm not dicing them, I'm just leaving them in strips so that they will be easy for me to place in my sandwich. They'll also be somewhat of a similar consistency to the beef once I pull apart the beef. Next, I'm going to use a whole head of garlic, and I'm actually not going to cut up these garlic cloves. I'm just going to place them in full. They will fall apart afterwards when I finish cooking the meat and the onions. So I've removed the meat from my pan, and now, as you see right there, it's nicely caramelized. And now I'm going to throw the onions in. We need to sweat these onions, and I actually like to cook them just a bit more. So I've cooked them down for about, I don't know, about maybe 10 minutes so they caramelize a bit. And then I'm adding some red wine. We want to build the flavor here. So it's going to be this process of adding an ingredient, a liquid more so, and deglazing the pan. So as I add the red wine, I'm now going to go and scrape the bottom of the pan. I'm going to do the same thing with the next step. I added chicken stock here just because I didn't have any beef stock yet. That was about 2 cups. But if I had beef stock, I would have added that instead. So again, deglazing the pan. And now I'm going to go and put my meat back in it. I want to make sure to kind of nestle it in as much as possible. And I want to make sure that the liquid content comes about 2/3 of the way up on the beef. So I actually just rinsed out my bowl with some water there. I wanted to make sure to get all of the beef juices back into the pot. That is what adds so much flavor. So we don't want to waste any of it. I'm going to throw the garlic cloves in as well. I'll just nestle them around. Nothing too fancy with that. I'm also going to add some parsley just because I have it on hand. I like to add some aromatics or, some fresh herbs based on what I have in my kitchen. So I just took a little bundle and I'll just throw that in there. Finally, I'm going to add a bit more liquid, so water, making sure that the beef is 2/3 of the way covered. I will turn on the oven now. I want it to heat up because I will be cooking this primarily in the oven once all the ingredients have entered. So I put it in the oven, and after about 3-4 hours, this is what it started to look like. I did go and put the juices on the meat several times during the cooking process. Now I cooked this beef the day before because I was out with my kids the following day, and I knew I wouldn't have time to cook a full meal. But what I did is I prepped the dough for the bread in the morning, and now I'm going to go and shape the bread that we will use to make our sandwiches. I like to have fresh bread that's made the day of. It's really not that difficult to make bread, so just I find adding fresh bread to making sandwiches, it just levels it up. So I'm making just sort of a quick, like, rustic, oversized baguette here. I want a certain shape. I want them to be kind of long and flat because I want them to be able to hold a good amount of meat and toppings in them. So I just shape them here, put them on the cookie tray and preheat the oven, and I'll throw them in and bake them. They really don't take long. Also, if you want a link to the bread recipe, I will put it down in the description below. Next, I want to make a quick mayo horseradish sauce. This will be what I put on the bread. I'm just going to add equal parts mayonnaise and horseradish to a bowl. I really like horseradish. It has that nice spicy, kick to it. I really like extra strong horseradish, honestly. But my kids, of course, do not like horseradish. So that's why I made two different breads so that one could be for the kids and one could be for my husband and I. That way we can each make ours the way we prefer. So the bread is ready. This is what it looks like. I just wrapped it in a towel to keep it warm and to make it softer, because oftentimes when bread comes out of an oven, it can get really hard. I'm going to give the meat a try here. These were short ribs that had a big hunk of meat, that they were wrapped around. So here I'm trying the rib part, and they were delicious. I just rewarmed the meat on this day. And now I'm going to take out some of those caramelized onions, and the garlic cloves sort of fell apart in there too. That is honestly the most delicious part. If you wanted to eat this not in a sandwich, you could just eat it with some mashed potatoes or some rice or, anything. Honestly, it's so tasty and delicious. So I'll put that in a bowl, and then I'm going to shred the meat. I'm going to choose the portion that we will use for our sandwiches, and the rest I'll leave in the pot because we will have some of this for leftovers for lunches the next day. So the meat is fall apart tender. It will easily shred into many different pieces. And so I just take 2 forks to it and pull it apart. For my kids, I tend to try to get really a lot smaller pieces. They have little mouths, so for them to take a bite and eat all the meat, if it's too big of a meaty bite, then they will just spit it back out. So I'm going to quickly shred this, and I added a bit of sauce to it also once I shredded it, just to, make it a bit more juicy. Open the baguette, put the horseradish mayo on the bread. Then I'm going to put a lot of beef here. I want to make sure that this sandwich is plentiful, and I really like to have a nice meaty bite. Next are the gorgeous caramelized onions that you see here. So I'm going to put those on top of the beef. And remember, if there's elements that you prefer, you can make your sandwich how you wish, but really the meat is the star component here. So as long as you have this delicious braised beef, I'm sure the sandwich will turn out wonderfully. I'm going to make sure to use a lot of those caramelized onions, and I'll leave some off to the side if we want to add to our individual sandwiches after. I do the same thing with the horseradish mayo in case we want to dip in it while we're, eating the sandwiches for dinner. My husband and I like cheese on our sandwiches, so honestly I'm using some American cheese here. I know it's not the best cheese, but he requested having this classic American cheese. I didn't buy the Kraft single, so it's a bit of a step up from that, but it's not a good quality cheese. I melted it in the oven, and then lastly I will top it with some bread and butter pickles. I love bread and butter pickles, and I make them in the summer, but I did run out. Cowboy candy is also a really good option to put on this sandwich. I added that later on. So here I'm going to give the sandwich a try. It was quite a lot for me to eat in one sitting. I took half of that baguette, but I didn't end up finishing it. My kids love their sandwiches too. I made them how they like them best. And that's how it turned out. So I really hope that you give this recipe a try and enjoy.